Julia here. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and in honor of the holiday, I'm going to take today to talk about my 5 favorite romantic tropes in fiction. So if you're not familiar what a trope is, basically a trope is a cliche that hasn't been driven into the ground. So tropes are patterns that you see in fiction, but they're not necessarily to the point where they've become a cliche. They're patterns that you see, but you're not mad that you see them. So let me just dive right in and talk about number 1. My first favorite romantic trope is when you kind of turn the tables on what you normally see in romance and you see an outspoken girl and a quiet boy that may have feelings for each other. So I have seen so many stories where it's this super awkward girl and the guy is absolutely super out there, super extroverted, doing all this stuff, and the girl is head over heels for the guy, but is too shy or too awkward to go up to him. I like it when the tables are turned. You gotta see some women representation who are cool and confident and not afraid to show who they are. And then you also see some more quiet and shy guys that might have feelings but are afraid to kind of act on them. A great example of this, I think, that's executed really well is in Bridge to Terabithia, which I read when I was in 5th grade, I believe, but I loved that story so much. And that was a great example of a more quiet boy that was taken away by this beautiful young girl. And he was able to blossom and bloom because of the influence that she had on him. It's honestly a beautiful story. It's a quick and easy read if you're reading it as an adult or as a teenager. But I really enjoyed it, and I really think that it should be a more well-known story, because after I read that and the movie came out, there wasn't really any more talk about it, and I think it deserves more representation. My second favorite romantic trope is when there are 2 characters and they deny their attractiveness to each other with snarkiness and mean comments. I think it is hilarious when you have 2 characters that are constantly like throwing snide comments at each other and just being super rude to each other, but there's definitely some tension underlying those different remarks that they're saying. I recently read Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing, and there are 2 characters in there, Beatrice and Benedict, and this describes their relationship perfectly. They're constantly like joking with each other and insulting each other like lightheartedly, and it is just, it makes the relationship so much fun and just so intriguing and so engaging, and I just love it when characters do that. I think it's a great way to show the closeness that a couple has without them constantly swooning over each other, and I think it's more realistic than like the super like sexualized type of flirting that I see in a lot of stories. I think a lot of times like kind of being quirky and funny is more often what you see in life than like something like 50 Shades, if that makes sense. My third favorite romantic trope is when there's not what I call a power imbalance of attractiveness within whatever couple it is. I'm not even gonna give an example for this one because literally I have seen it so often that like 50 books come to mind. When one character is an Adonis, super gorgeous, all the people are fawning over him, and then the other person in the relationship is like super plain and there's nothing good about them. And like, life just isn't like that, okay? I hate to say this, but if this story takes place in a high school, most likely the super attractive person is not really going to notice the shy and seemingly not so attractive person. That's just not how high school or life works, okay? If you want to meet someone, a glance across the room is most likely not gonna tie 2 hearts together. You need to talk. You need to have a conversation, and it's just not realistic for one to be super swoony and one to be like a complete, I don't even know, like just a rock with like barely a personality. It's just not how life works. So I really like it when the author either doesn't comment on how super attractive one is to the other. There has to be like a little bit of equality. Now that's not to say that the characters can't find each other attractive, because that's part of what makes up romance, but I don't like it where there's this super large imbalance that makes it almost completely unrealistic for either of them to fall for each other. My fourth favorite romantic trope is when there's a kiss after a near-death situation. Now, luckily myself, I have never been in a near-death situation or had to have this happen in real life, but I think there's just something really powerful about almost dying and then realizing that you don't want to waste another second not acting on these feelings that you have for another person. My favorite example of this, and I think this was the first time that I actually saw this in literature, was Hermione and Ron kissing in the Chamber of Secrets. Just such a beautiful moment, and like it made sense for their characters. It had been building over the course of 7 books, and it was just such a great moment for them. Oh, just swoon worthy. And like they both had this realization of, oh my gosh, we almost died and I didn't kiss you yet. And it just, beautiful. I love it so much. All right, last but not least, my 5th favorite trope, and this is like very specific, but I'm gonna include it anyway. Forehead kisses, okay? I think a lot of times people kind of forget that you can kiss someone on the face, like other than their lips, because I think it's just really, it can be really powerful, especially if the character like takes the other character in their hand and like gives them a kiss on the forehead. That sometimes is more powerful and I think more intimate than even kissing them on the lips. Now this isn't in a romantic setting, but recently I saw The Last Jedi again, and at the very end of that movie, Luke Skywalker kisses Leia on the forehead. And obviously that's not romantic because they're brother and sister, but there's just something so intimate and so private about a forehead kiss that I think is like, I'd argue that sometimes in context it's better than a mouth-to-mouth kiss. I don't know, that's just my opinion, but I love forehead kisses and I think they should be in more stories. Just my opinion. So there you go, there are my 5 favorite romantic tropes. Do you agree with me on any of my choices? Did I leave out any really awesome romantic tropes? Let me know in the comments below, I'd love to hear about them. Thank you guys for stopping by. Bye!